Okay, so this is Zeplay. Zeplay is an instant replay system that was designed for live sports production. Zeplay came out of my background in community TV, doing high school sports, junior high band concerts, all those things, at a small station in Minnesota where they needed a replay system, and they couldn't afford any of the $500,000 systems that were out there for sale at the time. So that we built our own, basically. And I never thought that this was going to be a commercial product. I built it just because my friends at the TV station needed a replay system, and I figured I could do something. And here we are 15 years later, we're selling it, we get systems all over the world. And so it's been quite a ride. As far as what we see here, we have a server that is running our custom software. That has all of our video processing, video in and out feeds, and then all the storage for all the content is all built into the server. And then we have a control panel that the operator uses in order to actually interact with the system for most of the control. And then just the keyboard, mouse, and the monitor, normal computer controls. So this is a Windows PC running our software. Our goal is that you can do almost everything you need to do from the control panel so that you can do it quickly and without needing to fumble around with the mouse and the keyboard and things like that. So as far as the software goes, what we see on the screen here, the top 4 windows here are my live camera feeds coming in from the field. So this is what's happening in the arena right now. The bottom 4 windows are my playback channels that are they're being delayed by Zeplay and then being sent back out for the director to use when they want to take to a replay. So right now we're at live, so we're just a few frames of delay from our input to our output, and we're not actually doing any useful replays, but we'll change that in a second. So every replay system out there has some kind of basic features, as far as how you access clips. So right now, imagine that we want to do a replay of this Zamboni driving across the rink here. I can just rewind this back. If we watch my green monitor here, I can see, okay, maybe I want to start my replay right there, and I want to go until they get across the line. I can just jog forward here, and we'll go there, and we can mark our out point. And now I have this item saved here that I can see on, we call this the play bar. So this is kind of like a timeline view that shows me where I'm at. I see that I have my red, green, blue, and gold players all paused at the beginning of this item that I just saved.
Okay.
So right now I can just use the T-bar on the control panel to control my playback speed. As I ramp this up, this is going to speed that up. So now we're playing at 100%. And I've got all 4 of my playback channels are playing through this, and I can see, they're coming up to the end. We're almost at the end of this here, and we're at the end of that clip. I do have independent control as well. So if I want to, I could just control my green channel and roll that. And now my green channel is playing. The rest of the channels are doing the last thing they were. I can see that they're all still paused here at the beginning, and the green channel's at the end. So that makes it really quick to do multiple angles. Like if I want to show, if I got multiple cameras for a football game, they score a touchdown, I can show one angle that shows the pass, I can show another angle where they do the catch, I can show another angle of the catch, and I can show an angle of the crowd cheering, all without needing to build a playlist. I can just do that live from the control panel.
And just using the T-bar to control the speed of that playback.
Yep. So right now the T-bar's all the way up, my speed's at 100%. As I bring the T-bar down, that speed's just going to slow down, and my video is going to slow down smoothly. So I can change that speed on the fly. I can slow down to show something that I want to show the detail of, speed it back up, and let go. There's also some modifier keys as well here, so I can do a 2x modifier. So now the top is double speed, okay. The middle is play, and the bottom is pause. So that's kind of the Keystone Cops effect if I want to have people go faster. Sometimes if it's a really long play in a football game, I might want to go a little faster than real time to show, just kind of speed that up. And then there's also a plus-minus mode. And in this mode, my 100% is at the top, pauses at the middle, and reverse 100% is at the bottom. So now I can kind of go forward and go back and show, if I have the puck just barely skates past the goal, I can show that going forward and back smoothly and reverse that.
Very good.
For fun, you can set them both. You can use both of them at the same time as well. So you get double speed and reverse double speed as well. So those are there if you need it. Generally speaking, I would say 90% of what I do is not using any of those. It's just somewhere between 100 and 60% is kind of where I do most of my replays. But what's cool about Zeplay too is that I'm always recording. So as we've had this conversation, I saved this clip here a couple of minutes ago as we've been talking, But if something happened in here that I wanted, like I can just fast forward and I can see all of that content got recorded. So as I'm doing replays, I'm still recording. I'm not in a situation where I missed something that happened live because I was in the middle of a replay. It's always there, it's always available.
And all 4 cameras are staying in sync?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, on the record side. So we're recording everything simultaneously in sync. You can control the playback channels independently.
Right.
So they're synced if you want them to be. You can do them asynchronously if you'd like as well.
Gotcha.
You can also build playlists. So here we have like a little playlist that we made that is kind of our highlights package. So I can queue this up on my first channel. I can roll that. We have a sponsor logo that we brought in. We'll go through that. We'll go into the next clip here. We'll go in here. We're just going to play through each of these items in order. The countdowns here show me the countdown to the end of the sequence at the bottom here, and the end of the item at the top. So if I needed to count someone out to let them know, okay, here comes the next item, they're coming up, and there we go, there's the next one, I can count them down to the end, either of the item or the playlist as a whole.
And here's the playlist right here.
Yep, so the items, it basically works like iMovie, just a very straightforward drag and drop interface. If I need to rearrange things, I can just drag them. Because we save those clips where when we save an in point and an out point, we have all of the angles together.
Yes.
We can also just go in here and say, actually I don't like this camera angle, I actually would rather see this one from gold, or maybe I'd rather see that one from green. It doesn't change the time we're seeing, it's just which camera you're looking at.
Very good.
So it makes it really quick to do those quick changes.
And how are you, as a game is going on, and at the end of the game you want to have a highlight reel, how are you building that as it goes on?
So I just build it as the game goes. So I'll start the game and I'll make a new playlist here, or sequence. You can set a name on these, so sometimes I'll go in and name this, name it highlights, just so I can find it quicker and easier. Okay. Sometimes I don't. And so I'll start, usually what I do is, again, it depends on the sport, but for a basketball game, I'll do a first half highlights. As the game's going on, I'll just drop stuff in there. And then I'll do a second playlist for the second half of the highlights. And then a trick that I like is I'll take those and I'll combine those and put that on social media. So production flow-wise, at the end of the first half, obviously we can't see the second half highlights because it hasn't happened yet, so we'll do the first half highlights. At the end of the game, depending on how the game went, I either want to do the whole game highlights or I just want to do the second half.
Okay.
If the second half was really action-packed and there was a lot that happened, I might just do the second half. If they didn't do anything in the second half and the first half was the only part that was interesting, then I want to probably show the whole game. So what I'll do is I'll have my first half highlights as the game's going on. So this clip that we just saved here, maybe I want this Zamboni clip in there. I can just go in here, I can grab this green item here and I can just drag this and drop it into my sequence. I can also click add and put it there, and I can do it from the control panel as well. So there's lots of ways to bring that in. But from here, it's basically just iMovie, right? So I can just drop that in there. I can say I also want to put this gold angle in there as well. So I have that. As the game goes on, that was a great play. I'm going to drop that into the highlights as well.
Gotcha.
And then what I'll typically do is, maybe a minute before the end of the half or 2 minutes before the end of the half, I'll queue those highlights up and watch them myself just to make sure that I like it.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll realize, actually I put 2 copies of that same basket in there because they scored a basket. I was like, that's a great highlight. I put it in there. Somebody asked me a question and I was like, I got to put that in the highlights, and I'll put it in, then I watch it and I'm like, oh, that's clearly not what I want. I want to clean that up, Or just you'll notice the flow isn't quite right and you want another second on this, or you cut something off as they're about to high-five a teammate or anything like that.
Right.
It's kind of the editorial side of, you can put the stuff in there and get one clip after another pretty quickly and easily. Making something that looks like a compelling story and is a nice thing to watch on TV is a little bit more of an art.
Right.
And that's practice. That's just repetition.
And would you say that this operation, as we described it, to apply it for our purposes, you would have to have a person dedicated to this? That's what they're doing.
I would say that depends on the person, and that depends on what else you've got going on. So at the station where I grew up, they still use Zeplay. They got 2 systems there, one at one of the high schools and one in their production truck. And it's junior high school volunteers for the most part that are running it. Depending on the production, so if you're doing for a football game versus a basketball game versus a hockey game, the demands on the replay person are very different. In a hockey game, a lot of times, it's like they might go 20 minutes and nothing all that interesting happens, and then they score a goal and you need to do a replay. But in the meantime, you could be running audio probably, or it's like you could do an 80% job of running audio and an 80% job of running replays at a hockey game pretty comfortably. At a basketball game, if the goal is that we're going to show a replay every time they score a basket, well, they're going to score 120 baskets in the course of the game. You're going to be working really hard. So We have kids at the TV station who will run like a PTZ camera on a robotic control panel and replays at the same time. We have kids that run audio at the same time. When I was a kid, I mean, when we first started doing Zeplay, like we had a very small hockey crew, and it was basically two of us that would do the hockey game. So one person would run one camera. We'd set up two cameras just pointed at the goals, just with the lockdown shot that weren't operated, but they'd skate into it, shoot the goal, and we'd have a good shot of it. And I would be in the truck running, directing, doing audio, doing graphics, and doing replays all by myself. With everything set up around me and all that.
Like an octopus.
Yeah, and it wasn't perfect TV, but it was better than nothing. It was better than not covering it. You know, and we didn't have the option of saying like we're not going to have audio, so we had to do all those things. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a question of kind of what are your standards, what is your goal. I think you come to NAB, and some of the people here that are doing production, their goal is that we're going to win awards for this, and this is going to be the finest broadcast that's ever been done. And there's some people who come to it and say, here's an event that wouldn't have been televised if it wasn't for us, and we're going to provide a community service and get this out there so that people can participate in this event. And those people aren't going to be at home saying like, man, I wish there were more replays. They're going to be thrilled that you're giving them a live feed of their grandkid playing basketball.
I guess that describes us.
Yeah. So I think there's going to need to be compromises made and just decisions about what is a reasonable level that you can accomplish. Because when at the station that I grew up at, I mean, we go everywhere from 2-person hockey production up to 40-person football productions. And we spend weeks of time preparing for those football games and getting all the logistics figured out and where are we going to put the cables and exactly what order does the pregame show happen in so that we can do an interview with the person that just got inducted into the Hall of Fame before the national anthem starts and like all this stuff that you're just never going to be able to do in the smaller productions, or if your goal is to get 50 basketball games done a year, you're going to want to figure out like how can we do this in a way that we all can stay sane and get this out to the viewers in a good way, but yeah, the norm would be, if you look at the replay market, you've got some lower end systems, you've got kind of a mid range, and you've got the high end. So the high end system, you're doing the Olympics, you're doing the Super Bowl, you're doing NFL games, things like that. Those people are spending millions of dollars on those systems. The low end of the replay market, you could spend hundreds of dollars and you could get a much more basic system. Those systems don't record and play back simultaneously. So like when you're doing a replay, you're not recording. You're about to do a replay of the touchdown that just happened after they kick the extra point, but they block the extra point and they run it back 100 yards for a touchdown in the other end, which is way more interesting than the original touchdown, but you don't have it because that system can't record and play back at the same time, right? So you lose those things. You don't necessarily have the ability to do the playlists. You don't have the ability to like import and export content and get that out to other social media and things like that. So that's the sacrifices you're going to make as you look at those lower end systems. The other thing though is that in the lower end, you also run into situations where you have kind of more of an all-in-one system, where your production switcher might have built-in replays, where it has 1 channel or 2 channels of replay that are built in. And again, those are better than no replays. Like I think I would much rather watch a basketball game that has mediocre 2 cameras of replays than no replays. But the difference between having that and having a dedicated operator who knows what they're doing and who can build those playlists for you as you're going and who can get you those replays every single time, that's where you're going to get the payoff of having a dedicated person and a dedicated system to do that replay. So, the norm, if you watch it, even, NBA games for the most part, they generally don't do live replays of basketball. Something will happen, something happens, and then, there's a break, there's a timeout, there's an injury or whatever, they're going to a commercial break. They'll show a little package with like 3 or 4 of the last baskets that happened, they edit together, but they're not, it's not like they score a basket and they do a replay and they score a basket and they do a replay. And that's mostly a function of time. Like they just don't, the system's not fast enough for them to get that replay queued up, do the communication between all the people in the truck, get the thing on air before they come back in and are playing again. It's only 5 seconds from the time they score a basket. With Zeplay, because of the way we built the system, you can do things like that. So we've got these mark in and mark out buttons over here. These mark my in and out points where I'm at in my playback. So I can go back, I can find the endpoint I want exactly by the frame. These start play and start save play buttons over here, these mark in points and out points, but they're doing it based on where I'm at in live action. So it's a little bit more of a crude mark because you're not going to get it exactly at the frame. But what that means is like I can be back here, at the beginning of the day looking for this clip here, and if something cool is happening out here, like I want the shot of that, I can mark my endpoint, hit save play, and I've got that clip clipped off and ready to go.
Right.
You can also set a maximum length on that, so you can say, hey, if I don't press start play, or if I press start play and then wait for a long time and then hit save play, what should happen? Do I really want to make a 40-minute long clip?
Right.
Because I care about that endpoint. But in a basketball game or in a hockey game, what you can do is you can save that maximum length to about 3, maybe 4 seconds.
Okay.
And then what happens is I don't ever even bother to hit start play. Now what I have is when I hit save play, it's going to end when I push the button, and it's going to start 3 seconds before that.
Right.
So now they score a basket, I hit save play, I'm queued up 2 seconds before the basket with 1 button push. So now, if your communication between your director and your replay operation is good and you've got good communication, they score a basket, I hit save play, the director takes to me, we run the replay, we go back and we're back before they throw the ball in. So you can actually do an angle of that replay live on every basket.
Right.
You know,
wow.
The other trick you can do that I wouldn't necessarily advocate to the higher end of the Zeplay customers, but for you and for what you're doing is actually a really useful thing, is you can kind of do a modified version of that. So right now the time here is showing me how far I am behind live, right? So right now I'm just a couple of frames behind live. What you can do, because we're always recording and playing back at the same time, I can just pause Zeplay here. I can see, so right now I'm 5 seconds behind live, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. Okay, so just about 7.5 seconds. 720p, that's why we're getting more than 30 frames a second. But so now I'm 7 seconds behind live. So now if they score a goal on this camera here, now, 7 seconds later, they're going to score that same goal again.
Right.
So we're basically just acting like a TiVo, where things are coming in, we're recording it, we're delaying it by 7 seconds, and we're playing it out again.
Okay.
So now, you don't even need a replay operator. Like, you could literally start the game, park it 7 seconds behind live, not touch Zeplay for the rest of the day. And now the director can just go, okay, they scored a goal, that's going to happen again in 7, 6, 5. Okay, I'll take to the replay. We'll see them skate up. They scored the goal. We'll take away. And you just leave Zeplay delaying that by 7 seconds. You come back for the next replay. You're still delayed by 7 seconds. You just keep going.
Right.
The downside of that is that often you don't have anything marked. So if you need to go find that goal again,
right,
you got to search through 2 hours of recorded content to find it. So that's compromise. But as I said, it's that game of sometimes you got big productions and sometimes you got small productions.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'll do that in those small shows where I just don't have the resources, or I'll kind of do a hybrid of it where like maybe I'm running replays, but I'm also the engineer on the show. And there's a camera that's not working. Okay, well I'm going to park it 7 seconds behind live and tell the director that I'm going to go deal with this camera problem. In the meantime, they can still get something on air. I'll come back, find the couple of goals that I missed, do what I need to do to keep those highlights going. So there's a lot of kind of room to run that multiple ways.
So the 2 questions come to my mind is the signal path. So let's say, in this case, you've got 4 cameras up here.
Yep.
So if we had 4 cameras, would the 4 cameras come into here, loop through here, and then go into our field switcher?
So we don't have loops on the inputs.
Okay.
So what you would either do is, depending on how your cameras are set up, sometimes the cameras will have multiple outputs. So you could just have one output that goes to the production switcher,
okay,
and one output that would come to us.
Okay.
Or sometimes your production switcher might have like auxiliary outputs on it, where you can feed additional outputs from the switcher. So you could say the camera comes into switcher.
So if we had like a field TriCaster,
yeah,
we could
so
loop
aux 1 feeds into replays,
okay,
and then it comes out of replays back in as another input to the production switcher.
Okay.
We also, as you talked with Rob, we have NDI kind of in the works, so that would simplify things as well, because then you're not talking about additional like SDI cables. You could pull NDI across the network, depending on your cameras and your switcher and things like that. That would simplify that a little bit. The other option that a lot of people do is they just use a small routing switcher. You could buy distribution amplifiers to take each camera and make 2 copies of it and send one to the switcher and one to here. These days, honestly, I would just buy a small router and just say, okay, I'm going to take input 1, I'm going to send that to output 1 and output 2. And output 1 goes to the production switcher, output 2 goes to Zeplay. And I'm just using that router as a splitter, basically. But it's cheaper than buying the DAs, and it's more flexible because you can rearrange it later and use it, for other purposes as well. So.
All right, and what is this?
So this is a control panel from a company called Elgato. It's called the Stream Deck. These are like $100. They're made for the people that they've designed this for is like Twitch streamers. So you're playing a video game and you're streaming it live online, and you need to have a button.
Is this what you used for us to send the signal to the multi-view?
Yeah, same thing.
So it's the same thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so what we're showing here is I'm using actually the same software I use for your stuff. This is a third-party product, but I'm triggering commands to Zeplay. So I can press this button, and I can change the screen layout in Zeplay, and then switch back to that. So you could have this I'll use this as a shortcut key for the operator. Like
Okay.
any of the kind of repetitive things that I'm doing over and over, I'll put on a button here where I can just push that button and then I can offload that and not have to remember all the different keystrokes.
Okay.
The other way that you can handle this is you could give this to the producer, and you could say that the replay person's over here doing replays, but the producer has this and they can roll, they got 5 different PSAs here that are set up and ready to go, and if they need to take a break, they can push that button, Zeplay queues up that file, rolls it, and the director can take that thing and you have it ready to go. So it's kind of a way that if you want to, you can use that to kind of share the load so that the replay person's not on air the whole time.
Gotcha.
One of the things that, again, it really depends on the production style, but like when I've done like auto racing, in the auto racing production world, I mean, they basically don't, unless there's a crash, they don't take breaks. And if there is a crash, they want to see 50 replays of that crash that just happened. So, from the time, maybe a half hour before they go live until the end of the day, I need to be in the chair. I'm there before the show starts. As soon as the show starts, I roll the opening credits and all the stuff that happens at the beginning, and then I've got the whole production that has to happen. Then I got to get my highlights and all that stuff. It's really hard to get away to take a break or anything like that. So being able to offload that, where at least I can just go to them and say like, hey, I need to go run and get a sandwich from the craft services table.
Right.
Can you roll the breaks for me for a few minutes?
Right.
It's been a huge improvement in that. And this doesn't, as far as the control goes, that doesn't have to be the Stream Deck. This is what we're showing here, but there's iPhone apps, there's other options like that as well. So there's a lot of different third-party ways that you can control Zeplay as well. So.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Yeah.